There are definitely some good moments in the Christmas pledge, and I will praise various aspects of it in a minute, but I couldn't get over how lazy the beginning was, and because that really put me in a foul mood, I was just really annoyed for the rest of the film. But as I said, there were some moments that I did still enjoy. This was released this year in 2023. It's directed by James Temple and written by James R. Temple and Philip Sondericker. And this stars Isabelle Almoyan, who plays June. We have David Michael Reardon as Declan and Michelle Lundy as Claire. We also have Ron Ford as John, June's father. And John is very successful. He's never been there for his daughter, his business, his money. That's always been more important. And now that June is grown up, she's fed up of living life controlled by him. So, on the spur of the moment, she decides to go to the local TV station and get a job. I kid you not. She walks in there, kind of demands a job, and gets a job in broadcasting with no skills or experience, to the extent where she goes to the library and takes out all the books on broadcasting in an attempt to learn anything about it. And I just thought that was such a lazy way to set the narrative up. There was no reason why she couldn't just be working in broadcasting anyway. This feud with her father, feud's maybe not the right word, but this animosity with her father would still be there. He would still be, in her eyes, controlling. That could still happen with her working, having gained experience and knowledge beforehand, and then working at this TV station. And I don't understand why they thought it was an acceptable way to just have her waltz down there, demand a job, and then get a job doing something she knows nothing about. So I'm really confused as to how they thought that was a good idea, and it's just so lazy and so badly written. And honestly, it doesn't get much better. Our protagonists are boring. There's nothing wrong with the performances, and there are some characters that I like. I'll get to in a moment. But June and Declan are just boring. They're not very interesting at all. Declan is okay. He's the better of the two. But June is, I just don't like her. And she's not interesting. And I feel like she's kind of arrogant. So it was a terrible start. A very lazy way to start the film. The characters, well, our protagonists, are not that interesting. And the potential romantic relationship between the two of them, I just didn't care. The narrative focuses on the fact that this TV station needs a lot of pledges to keep going, and they have to try and find a way to get some pledges. There is a bit of Christmas in this, but it's not the most festive film, so it doesn't really have that working in its favour either. The only two good things it offers are the discussions about June's relationship with her father. I think if it could make anybody watching it stop and evaluate how they treat their children or how they spend time with their children or even their partner, if they're putting their career and their finances before their loved ones, that's not great. And if it can make anybody watching it stop and evaluate how they're approaching things, then that's brilliant. And I think it handled that part very well, very sensitively. I could really feel June's frustration, so it did that very well. The other thing it did well, I have to say, the character of her father was really fascinating to watch. There was just something about the character that I really took to. Claire, played by Michelle Lundy, made me laugh. She's the only funny thing in this, but she genuinely made me laugh. The conversation, well, maybe conversation's not the right word, but the interaction she had with June's father when she was on the telephone, so well done. Really, really brilliant. And there were just bits and pieces here and there that I quite liked with Claire. Also, even though June and Declan are both really boring protagonists, as a trio, June, Declan, and Claire work really well. So when all three of them are together, when they're interacting, when they're working together, I actually found that dynamic to be quite satisfying. So there are definitely things in the film that work well. If they hadn't had such a ridiculous beginning, and if they actually thought for 1 second about what they were doing and found a more logical way to have June working at the TV station, I wouldn't have minded so much if she'd got a job as a showrunner or something. That would have made a tiny bit more sense, but that's not what the job entails. She was working with a lot of the technical aspects, and it just felt ridiculous. if they'd made that a bit more believable, then really the only thing I'd have a problem with are how boring the protagonists are. And then it probably would have been a good film. But because we have a ridiculous narrative and really dull protagonists, then it's basically an okay film at best. Not very festive, some likable characters, some good, certainly thought provoking aspects of the narrative. So it's not perfect, it's not ideal, it's not an amazing film, but it's okay. There's enough in it that I liked for me to say I recommend it. It's not a perfect film, but if you're just looking for something that, all things considered, is quite an easy watch, maybe you want it as background fluff or you just want something that doesn't require too much concentration, that still has a couple of good moments in it, then sure, The Christmas Pledge is okay for that. If you're looking for something that's hilarious or very festive or with brilliant characters, not so much. But if you're in the mood for this kind of film, I'd say go for it. I don't mind having watched it. I liked enough of it, but I definitely wouldn't watch it again.